showing you how to use Python in the field calculator in ArcGIS. So what I'm specifically going to be showing you with Python is in the field calculator is doing an if-then statement. So basically that means if something is true, execute something. If something is true, execute something. If something is true, execute something, in etc., etc. And if something isn't true as you go down your code, then it'll just skip that line and then move on to the next. Hopefully you'll have a better idea of that by the end of the video. So the data that we're going to be using is some U.S. Department of Transportation data. I have airports, plopped them on this base map, and these are all of the airports in the U.S. or I guess U.S. owned or something like that. And I'm going to throw a definition query on it because I have way too many airports. So let's look at our attribute table. So what we're going to be working with is the number of passengers who are passing through this airport. And so we have lots of zeros in here, so I'm just going to say that those airports are unimportant to what I'm doing. So throw a definition query on there, go to properties, definition query. This will basically temporarily, or at least as long as I have a definition query on it, on the feature class, it's only going to show what I am querying. So let's see, I want to do passengers greater than 0. Okay, and that got rid of a ton of airports, which is good. Zoom in here. So now we have more important airports. Okay, so what I want to do is take, let's see. Actually, yeah. So what I want to do is I want to take, based on the region, so all these airports are divided into regions according to the, I'm assuming the FAA or something. That's just what the data came with. And so they're divided into these regions, and I want to put a number code. For some reason, I want to put a number code to each, separate each region based on, or give each region a number code. And so I can do that in the field calculator. I'm going to do that by first, outside of an editing session, going to add a field. I want this to be a float data. Oh, actually, you know what? For this one, it doesn't matter. We'll just we're going to use an integer, short integer, because definitely don't want any decimals. Integer is a whole number. Let's see, float has decimals on it. So I'm going to call this a code. Okay. So that created our new field. So now I'm going to start editing. You need to be in an editing set. Well, you don't need to, but it's safe so that you can back out if you don't like what you just did, which is something that I would advise. So to get to the field calculator, you right-click on your field. The field we're working on is code, and we right-click and then click on the field calculator. Field calculator pops up. We want to then, because this is a Python tutorial, we're using Python, and then we also want to do, for more intense field calculations like what we're going to do, we want to show code block. This way we can define a function and then do our calculations within the function. And so I've already written the code, and I'll go through and explain it. But in the field calculator, there's two boxes. This is the box that will hold the bulk of the code. This one just, as far as I understand it, grabs the fields as inputs, however many fields that you're going to be using, and plops them into your function. And your function will be up here. So I'll show you that. So this is where I edited my code. This is, so actually let's start with this. So define a function. Def is how you define a function in Python. So def, your function name, I've called it code calc. That's just an arbitrary name I made up. You just need to be consistent with it. And then in the parentheses is a field name. So that's our one input. You can add multiple inputs by doing parentheses and then typing in other inputs. So FAA region. So remember, we are going to be taking, based on what the FAA region is, we're going to give it a number based on that region. So that is my input. So that's my function. And to actually get that field to go in as an input, you need to basically, you need to have that function down here, and I'll show you how. To add the field, all you have to do is double click there, FAA region, and then it's in there. I just don't like those spaces. Okay, so now to the actual conditional statement. So, or the if-then statement, or in this case in Python, it's the if-elif else statement. So, like I was saying before, so an if statement works if, and I'll just kind of go into it. So if FAA region, or the field in our attribute table, if the field FAA region, which was inputted in our function, if FAA region is equal to, you need two equals, or else you would be defining a variable. Just remember that in a condition you use two equal signs. So if this field is equal to the string, that's why it's quotes, not a number. If it's equal to the characters A and M, return 1. So 1 will be plopped into our new field, which is code. So basically, what the field calculator will do is, if FAA region is equal to A and M, it'll put the number 1 in the row where this is true. If that is not true, it will skip these two rows and go down here, and it'll keep skipping through each row looking to see if something is true. Once it's hit something that's true, say it's this one where FAA region is ANE, then it will return the number 7 and plop that into the row where that is true. Now, say we have some arbitrary, some character in our FAA region field where, oh, don't want to do that, where that's where none of these conditions are true. If that's the case, it will skip through each one of these and it will so it will skip all these lines, won't do anything, and then when it comes down to line 31 where the else statement is, it will put 10 in. So I just made that up. I could have put whatever in there, but later I could sort through them and do a query and find where all the 10s are, and you know, fix my data if I needed to, or whatnot. But it's important to have an else statement, so that anything that doesn't match what you're looking for is taken care of. So I hope that's a good enough explanation for how this works. I'm going to put it in our code, and let's see, make sure it's so. Oops. Actually, just going to copy it all over because I want the indentations. Indentations in Python are important. So there we go. And now let me just make sure everything looks right. Our output is a number on Python, and that should work. We defined our function, grabbed an input. If that input is equal to this, return a number. Okay, so I'm going to run it. All right, so let's see. We had something happen. Okay, so let's make sure that that worked correctly. We have ones down here, and then FAA, ANM, and M1. Okay, cool. So that worked correctly. So the next group is 8. 8. AEA is the region. AEA. Okay, so it worked. So I guess that's it. Yeah, so I just showed you how to use a conditional statement or an if statement in the in Arc Maps field calculator, and yeah, and that is it.